There will be a bonus chapter, that will be split in 2 parts, one about Theonza, and one part about Minnie. I don't know when that will be posted though, because I have plans tonight and tomorrow, and have to finish writing it still. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. I hope everyone enjoyed this story. My next story will either be a one-shot or a short story about John/Minnie, as I do intend for them to be a couple, but more on that later. Have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day. Chapter 23, Bonus, Theonza and Minnie. Notes. Hi guys. Just a little by the way, the baby's name is still Eddard, but I changed his nickname from Ned to Teddy. It's an idea I had a while ago, but thought some might find it weird, but I asked a friend of mine and she thinks it's cute, and it's my story, so I changed it anyway. Also, my John/Minnie story hasn't been posted, but it will be titled, Dear John. And it will be part 4 to my series. I think I'll write and post a Rob/Roslyn epilogue after my John/Minnie story. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. Sansa was sitting in hers and Theon's chambers in Winterfell, her newborn nephew, Teddy, resting in her arms. She's supposed to be packing, as she and Theon are to return to the Dread Fort in the morning, but she can't bring herself to set her nephew down. Theon comes walking into their room, his bow in his arms and his quiver swung over his shoulder. He had been in the training yard with Rickon all afternoon. He smiles at her, and at the little bundle. Have you finished packing, princess? He asks, setting his bow down. Sansa blushes. I haven't started, she confesses. Theon laughs, and then comes to sit beside her on the edge of the bed, looking down at sleeping Teddy. He's a cute one, Theon comments. Do you think ours will be this cute? Sansa giggles, but he seems to be genuinely asking. Yes. She swats his arm. Ours will be just as cute. We'll probably think ours is cuter, though. That's what Roslyn says, that she thinks Eddard is cuter than any of her siblings, and she has so many. Theon smiles and nods. Where is Roslyn? Rob is helping her take a bath. I told them I'd watch little Teddy. She shifts him in her arms, angling him more towards Theon. Will you hold him? I'll start packing if you do. Theon hesitates. The baby was 3 days old, and Theon had yet to hold him. Even when Rob had asked Theon to be his godfather over breakfast the other morning, Theon hadn't held him, letting Minnie, Teddy's godmother, hold the baby instead. You need the practice, Sansa reminds him. Theon worries his brow, and his arms tensing and staying at his sides. Oh come on, you held Rickon when he was a baby. Rickon was a toddler, he pauses. How do you know about that? The incident in question happened many years ago. Theon was relatively new to Winterfell, still, or at least it had felt like it. In reality he had been there about 2 years. Her father had taken Bran on his very first hunting trip. Rob and Jon got to go, but for some reason, Theon didn't. Neither did little Arya, and she had been putting up a fuss. Septa Mordane couldn't calm her, Sansa had lost patience for her, and even her mother couldn't soothe Arya's complaints. Arya had run off, and everyone assumed she had just gone off to pout and play alone. But when it was lunchtime, she was nowhere to be found, and neither was little Rickon. Arya had left a note, saying she and her favorite little brother were going on their own hunting trip, seeing as they weren't invited. Her mother had been frantic, nearly calling the Banners in an effort for a search party, but at the time, Sansa had been more focused on how poor Arya's handwriting had been. Sir Roderick had gone looking for them, just as several other men did, but it was Theon who had found them. Her mother had gone to pray in the September, but Sansa had chosen to pray in the Godswood, and was startled when her prayers were interrupted by Arya's whiny voice. I didn't even kill anything. Arya complains. Sansa had looked over to see Theon dragging Arya by the hand with one arm, and holding little Rickon in his other. Arya. Sansa scolded. You got mother worried sick. Where did you go? Hunting. Arya told her matter-of-factly, causing Theon to chuckle. You could have died. Gotten baby Rickon killed. Sansa had walked over to them now and taken Rickon from Theon's arms, kissing his face and smoothing his hair. We were fine, Arya told her. I nearly had a rabbit until Theon scared it away. Theon laughed again. You were holding the bow wrong. You would have missed it. And I didn't scare it away, Rukun did, when he stepped on the leaves. Whatever. I could have gotten it. Did you not just hear Theon? Sansa laughed. He says you wouldn't have. Have you ever even used the bow before? Arya looked like she was about to cry and Sansa had felt bad for teasing. Theon was quick to the rescue. Tomorrow, I'll take you hunting, teach you to use a bow, and we'll come back with something bigger and better than whatever Robb or Bran or any of them get. How's that? Arya smiles. Later that day, her father and brothers returned, their biggest catch being a wild doe Robb had shot. The next day, Theon held true to his word and had taken Arya hunting, the two of them returning with a stag nearly twice the size of the doe. Sansa was sure Theon had shot it, and not Arya. She was sure everyone thought as much, but no one said anything. All she heard was her mother complaining to her father that Theon was a bad influence. She wasn't wrong. Sansa was pretty sure Theon had been helping Arya with her archery ever since that day. That was a long time ago, Theon reminds her. Nonsense, Sansa says, placing Teddy in his arms. She has to help him adjust his hold of the baby, and Theon continues to worry his brow, but Sansa thinks that Teddy is secure enough that she can leave their sides and start packing. She begins to start folding her dresses, and looks over at her husband and nephew, smiling. She places a hand over her swollen stomach and smiles, excitement and anticipation filling her head as she thinks of the fast approaching day where she'll get to see Theon hold their own child in his arms. Ned was nearly 2 months old. Minnie was sitting with Roslyn, Rukun, Oliver, Alis, and Lyra in Robb's solar, enjoying a quiet, Sunday dinner, when Robb comes rushing into the room. Sorry I'm late. Robb says, kissing Roslyn's forehead, and then pressing a light kiss to Ned's head from where he rests in Ao's arms, and sits down next to her. He's holding several parchments in his hand. There's news from both Theon and Jon. Robb tells them, as he holds up the unsealed letters. What do they say? Roslyn asks excitedly. Sansa had her baby. Robb says happily. Everyone around the table cheers and exclaims in response. A little girl, Katniss, apparently named for both of their mothers. Minnie fights not to laugh at this. She remembered Katniss being a wild potato plant that was common in the twins. She hopes Lord Greyjoy and Sansa didn't have that intention. How perfect. Roslyn says happily. She looks down at Teddy and smiles. We'll have to visit them in a few months. Robb nods in agreement as he takes a sip of ale. And what of Jon? Minnie can't help but ask. Oh, nothing too new. He just reported that things were going well in King's Landing. And he asked after Teddy and the rest of you all. He wrote to you as well, though. Robb hands her a folded and sealed parchment. And sure enough, it's addressed to her. Whatever for? Minnie asks. She had sent him 3 ravens while he and Robb were away in King's Landing, to update him on Roslyn's condition. But once Roslyn had gotten better, she had stopped writing. And he had never written back before. I'll read it later, Minnie says, putting the letter in her pocket and trying to focus back on dinner. Roslyn and Alis are both giving her a curious look, and she's worried they are going to ask her about it, when Rukun starts asking Robb all sorts of questions about his new niece. Minnie is glad. She doesn't know what she would say if the girls asked her about Jon. After dinner, Minnie says goodnight to her family, and Oliver escorts her and Alis to their room, before wishing them good night. Minnie sits at her desk and reads the letter while Alis sews in the candlelight. Dear Lady Minissa. Forgive me for not returning your letters sooner. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get letters back to you without Robb noticing, and he was already so worried for Roslyn. I was glad to hear that she got better. I knew she would. Roslyn has written to me twice to tell me of little Eddard. She says she'll be sending me monthly updates, so please do tell her I look forward to those. I can't wait for the day I can see you all again and meet my nephew. Things in the south are going well. King Tommen has quite the capable small council, and I do feel as though things are in the most capable hands they've been in a while. I must confess, I have no real reason to write to you. It was only, I was in my chambers and saw the favor you made for me, and thought perhaps I should check in on you. You had been so kind to me, and I was being a poor friend not returning your letters. Your friendship is very dear to me, for I had few friends in Winterfell and have even fewer here. Please forgive me. I don't expect you to write back to me, but if you do, I promise to write back promptly this time. Sincerely, John Stark. Minnie frowns as she finishes the letter. She hadn't realized he'd be so lonely in King's Landing. Hopefully things aren't as bad as they seem. She scans over the letter again, looking for any clues, and her breath catches when she rereads that he still has her favor. Rob had Roslyn's when he returned, but had lost it not long after being in Winterfell. The fact that John still had his made her curious. But then she remembered that he didn't have many possessions with him, so he probably keeps a close eye on all of the ones he does. What did Sir John have to say? Alis asks, as she climbs into her bed. Nothing much, Minnie tells her, biting her lip. He was only apologizing for not getting back to me when I wrote to him about Roslyn. Alis seems to accept this, and while it is the truth, Minnie can't help but feel like she's lying. She folds the letter and tucks it in her desk drawer, before pulling back the covers and getting into her own bed. Good night, Minnie, Alis says tiredly. Good night, Alis. The next morning, Minnie wakes early, something very much out of habit for her, and dresses, pulling her cloak tightly around her shoulders, before going outside for some fresh air. She brings some parchment and a quill with her, wanting to write back to John, but not wanting to wake Alis as she does. She finds a spot in the sun, and lays a quilt down, so she doesn't have to sit in the snow. Dear John. I was quite surprised to receive your raven, but it was a pleasant surprise, I assure you. I am glad to hear that things are going well in King's Landing. Just as I am sorry to hear that you haven't made many friends in there. Give it more time. Truth be told, I was really wary of Lady Lyra Mormont at first, and now she and I get along quite well. Perhaps you just need more time to get to know people better. Do tell me, how is Ghost? I miss him terribly. Shaggydoak and Grey Wind don't like me nearly as much as Ghost did. They much prefer Rob, Rickon, Roslyn, and now Teddy, too. Oh well. At least they haven't knocked me over like Ghost did. Do give him a hug for me, please. I value our friendship as well, so please, do write to me again. Roslyn says I should improve my penmanship, so this will be good practice for it. And, please, do call me Minnie. Friends should not have to be so formal with one another. Your friend, Minnie. A Bride for a Bridge, Epilogue. Mary Rouge. Summary. This is the epilogue to my Rob/Roslyn story, A Bride for a Bridge. Disclaimer, I do not own GOT or its characters. They belong to GRM. Notes. This story is set about 12 years after A Bride for a Bridge. The Second Greyjoy Rebellion ended 2 years before, and since then, there has been steady peace in Westeros. It takes place after Chapter 1 of Today Was a Fairy Tale, epilogue, and everyone has left Winterfell following Teddy's name day celebration. Work text. Roslyn is lying in the bathtub, having just read to the children and put Sarah to sleep. Everyone had left Winterfell that morning, and so they had all been in a sort of glum mood for the day. The children especially, as they missed their cousins. Rob walks in, having finished up his paperwork. Roslyn. He calls out. I'm here, she tells him, from behind the partition. He walks over to her, and kisses her head, before beginning to undress to join her. Roslyn scoots forward and he sits behind her, before she leans back against his chest. I think everyone had a good visit, Roslyn says. He nods in agreement, not that she can see it. I think so, too. The kids were all so happy. And it was nice to have all the younger boys here. I hadn't realized how grown Eddard and John are. I know, Roslyn agrees. Teddy and John were 12 and 10, soon to be 11. But Sansa and Theon's boys, Rob, Bran, and Asher, were 9, 7, and 5, and John and Minnie's, Ben and Will, were 6 and 4. It was nice to have such wild energy on the grounds, even if it was exhausting at times. It made her want another even more than she already did. They hadn't had a child since Sarah, and she was 5 now. We could always have another, Roslyn suggests hopefully. She turns to face him, smiling up at him, making her best effort to be both charming and seductive. It's her best hope to persuade him. Rob frowns slightly, before kissing her nose. I don't want to put you through that again, he tells her, as he always does. Please, Rob. Just one more. Then we'll have an even 6. Think of how perfect. You were one of 6. Sansa and Theon have 6. It's meant to be. Please. Roslyn. Please. One more and I'll cease asking. I promise. I don't know. You once promised me we could have as many as I want. I distinctly remember you saying we'll cap it at 6. We only have 5. We need the last one I was promised. Robb sighs. I should have known you'd use my words against me, he jokes. Do you not want another? Roslyn asks, suddenly worried. Perhaps 5 was already too much for him. But he always seemed so happy with the children. And he seemed over the moon when all of their nieces and nephews were here. I want another. Robb assures her. I'd be happy with 10 more. But I don't want to put your health at risk. I'll be fine, Roslyn tells him. One more. Please. Robb studies her, and then an all too charming smile breaks out on his face. One more. He agrees. 4 months later, Maester Lewin confirms she's expecting once again, nearly 2 moons along, and Roslyn has never been happier. Despite Robb's worries, this pregnancy seems to be agreeing quite well with Roslyn. She's got the mother's glow and has yet to experience heavy morning sickness. Roslyn's happy about that for many reasons. She's happy to be feeling well, and also, because, if the past was any indication, it meant she was carrying a boy. One thing that surprised her, was how big she was, even though she was not very far along. Maybe it was just that she hadn't been pregnant in so long, but she couldn't remember if she was even this big when she was carrying the twins. When Roslyn writes to her sisters, telling them of the news, both Minnie and Sansa are thrilled. Sansa and Roslyn made plans for her to be there for the birth, deciding she, Kat, and Rosala would all stay in Winterfell for the last month of her pregnancy. Roslyn was excited at the idea of having them visit again. Robb, and her other children were, too. Rickon was back in Winterfell now, and Roslyn was watching as he helped Arya and Audrey with their archery, and Teddy and Jon dueled in the yard next to them. She and Sara were sitting with the wolves, all except Grey Wind, who was with Robb, wherever he was at the moment. Nymaria's head rested in her lap, and Roslyn was petting her absent-mindedly. Sara was sitting on the ground, cuddling both Kato and Nyra. Mama? Sara asks. Yes, sweeterling. When the new baby comes, what will happen to me? Whatever do you mean? You and Papa always say I'm the baby, but I won't be anymore. Roslyn sighs, and reaches down to run her hand through her hair soothingly. You'll always be our baby, little wolf, but now, you'll be an older sister, too, just like Arya and Audrey. Isn't that nice? I guess so. Will the baby look like me? Maybe. There's no way to know for sure, until it's born. Is it a boy or girl? I'm not sure, sweeterling. But I think boy. Ah. I was hoping for a sister. Maybe. We'll have to see. Okay. The rest of the hour is filled with Sara asking her question after question as they watch their siblings train. When it's time to go inside for lunch, Roslyn eats with the children before leaving them with Lewin, and going to look for Robb, Nymeria coming with her. She finds him in the armory, talking over new supplies and weaponry. She waits outside for him to be done, knowing if she goes in there, she'll distract him from what he needs to get done. Minutes later, he exits the armory with Grey Wind. Roslyn. Robb says, surprised. What are you doing here? He asks as he hugs her. Looking for you, she tells him. Is everything all right? Yes. I was just missing you. I thought perhaps we could go for a walk if you had the time. Robb smiles. I can spare an hour, he tells her. He takes her hand and leads her to the Godswood, where they can walk and the wolves can roam. Sara's worried she won't be the baby anymore, Roslyn tells him, resting her free hand on her stomach. When this one comes, we'll have to be sure she doesn't feel neglected. Robb nods. Of course, he agrees. I think it would be good for both of us to spend one-on-one time with each of the children more anyway. Especially since Jon may be going off to be a ward, soon. Don't remind me, Roslyn says. King Tommen had offered to take him as a ward, as had Queen Asha. More likely though, they would send him to the Dread Fort, to be with Sansa and Theon, or to Riverrun, where he could be with Uncle Edmure and train with Uncle Bryndon. He's getting near the age. Rob reminds her. My father was a ward, and he thought the experience was good for him. We could send him to the Vale. Like my father was. My cousin Robin is there. He was a ward of House Royce for a while, but he's back in the Eyrie now and things are well for him. I don't know, Sansa said he was a little delicate as a child. I'd much rather send him to Riverrun. You always did admire your Uncle Bryndon, did you not? And Sansa and Theon could send Asher there in a few years. It would be nice for them to be there together. Riverrun it is, Rob agrees. I'll write to my Uncle Edmure soon, though we still won't send him until after his 12th name day. Perhaps we see if Rickon wants to visit the Vale. He's been begging me to let him go somewhere, and this way he won't be too far south. Roslin nods. That would be nice. I don't think he'd like the south nearly as much as he thinks he would. The last time he saw it he was 13, so anything would have been cool to see. But it's far too formal for his wild ways. A happier topic now, please. They talk of little things in the time that follows, before Roslin needs to meet with the Kitchens and Rob has to attend a meeting with Lord Karstark. Months later, Roslin is days away from her due date, and she is ready for the pregnancy to end. She is larger than she ever remembers, and feels like a whale. It's hard to move around, but it doesn't matter as much, as Mayor Stillowin has put her on bed rest. Sansa is tending to all the children, Rosala included, while Katniss sits beside her in bed and the two of them work on some embroidery. Roslin is adding camellias to a dress for Thea, having already made dresses for Kat and Ella. Katniss is working on a new pillowcase, adding all of family sigils, Stark, Greyjoy, Iron Islands and Dreadfort, and Tully, to the sleeve. How is it looking, Kitty? Roslin asks. Good, I think. Mother says I make nice, tight stitches. She shows it to Roslin, who smiles at her. It looks perfect, sweeterling, she tells her happily. Just then, she feels a contraction. She clutches her stomach. Are you all right, Aunt Ro? Roslin makes a face, breathing through the pain. Yes, Kitty. Though I think I'm in labor. Be a dear and go get your mother, uncle, and Mayor Stillowin for me, please. Katniss nods, and rushes out of the room. Minutes later, Sansa and Rob are at her side, holding her hand and encouraging her, while Mayor Stillowin helps her deliver. Katniss is in the nursery, she and Teddy in charge of putting all the children to bed. Rickon, Oliver, and Lyra all sit outside the door of her chambers, awaiting the arrival of the next prince or princess of Winterfell. Another contraction comes and Roslin squeezes Rob's hand tight, causing Rob to make a pained face. Sorry, Roslin tells him. It's fine. Rob assures her. Sansa lets go of her other hand and begins to prepare a blanket to wrap the baby in when it comes. I see the head, Lady Stark. Just one more push, my lady. Roslin takes a deep breath, and pushes, feeling relieved when the baby is born. The relief is temporary, for she doesn't hear the baby cry. She looks down to where Mayor Stillowin is handing the baby to Sansa. It's a boy, Mayor Stillowin says. Why isn't he crying? Roslin asks worriedly. She gives Rob a panicked look and his gaze shifts to the bundle in his sister's arms. Just then, the baby lets out a squeal, and Roslin feels her entire body relax. Sansa brings the baby to her and Roslin holds him to her chest. She smiles down at him, and then feels another contraction. Mayor Stillowin looks and gasps. There's another, my lady, he says. Twins again? Rob asks in disbelief. Sansa takes the baby from her and Roslin readies to push again. This baby comes much quicker, and cries the moment he enters the world. Sansa hands the first baby to Rob, and bundles up the second one, before handing it to Roslin. Twins again, Sansa says. How sweet. Roslin looks down at the one in her arms, and then over at the one in Rob's. Meant to be, Roslin agrees. Hours later, Rob and Roslin sit in bed, both babies resting in Roslin's arms, when Lyra, Oliver, and Rickon come in, Sansa leading Teddy and Katniss behind them. Twins. Kat exclaims excitedly, she hugs her mother's side. How is that possible? Rickon asks. Mayor Stillowin says once you have one set you're more likely to have another, Roslin tells him. These are both boys, though. Would you like to hold one, Rick? Roslyn hands the one in her left arm to Rickon, and the one in her right arm to Oliver. Oliver smiles down at her, and then the baby. Good job, little sister, he tells her sweetly. What are their names? Katniss asks, peering over Rickon's arms. Roslyn looks at Rob, who smiles. The one Oliver is holding is Brynden, after my uncle, the Blackfish. The one Rickon is holding is Rickard. Named after both my grandfather and my little brother. Rickon smiles at him. Thank you. That means a lot. Later, everyone has left but Teddy, who is sitting beside his mother, holding both his little brothers. Do you like your little brothers? Roslyn asks him. Yes. They are small, Teddy says. They look like Uncle John. Both babies had stark brown hair. It was too early to say what color their eyes were, as all babies were born with blue eyes, but Roslyn herself was eagerly wondering if they'd keep Rob's blue eyes or adopt the stark gray ones John possessed. They do, don't they? I'll have to tell Aunt Minnie that when I write to her next. She hugs her firstborn, and then excuses him to go to bed. Teddy hands the twins to Rob, who lays them in their bassinet before crawling into bed beside her. They're perfect, aren't they? Roslyn asks him happily. Yes, he agrees. You did well. I'm proud of you. Roslyn smiles. Thank you. Who would have thought we'd have twins again? Perhaps it's to make up for all the years we didn't have children, Rob wonders. Maybe. Though 7 is a lot, so I'll agree with you now. No more. No more, Rob agrees. Our family is perfect and complete.